This conference will now be recorded.
All right, thank you, Susan. Very good. I see it at 7:02. I'm calling the meeting to order. Item number 2 on our agenda, emergency exits. Everybody knows how to get out of their own house. So that we covered that off. Declarations of pecuniary interest can be stated now or at any time during the meeting. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Do I have someone to move that, please? Barbara, thank you, and seconded by John, and all in favor. We got that. Moving along, item number 5, approval of our minutes. Our last meeting, almost 3 months ago, Thursday, May the 26th. We were all there. Susan, thank you for including that in our package. John, Barbara, any changes, additions, comments, or anything about the Thursday, May 26th? That would be pen hack, as I call it, 02-2022. And any items there to bring up, please?
Not on my part.
Not
Barbara?
in mine as well.
And not on my part also. So can I ask someone to move that we approve those minutes, please?
I move.
Thank you, John. And Barbara, that leaves you to second it. And all in favor? So we've done that. That brings us to item number 6, a public question period for the hundreds of Mono residents who are online. If anybody has any questions, this is public question period, and you can ask them now. And I'll count that down as 3, 2, 1. Hearing none. End of public question period. So Susan's going to try to get hold of David there. But while we wait for him to sign in here, I'm going to talk about this. So we've got 2 topics of discussion here. I will say that the decision or the request to hold this meeting is mine. Our last meeting, May 26, was almost 3 months ago. And although we don't have any active planning issues on our agenda tonight, with that in mind, I do like to have a meeting every quarter. But really the impetus or why I asked to call this meeting is Bill 109, which is our first topic of discussion. Bill 109, and when I saw David's June 22nd, 2022 report to council about Bill 109, and actually I got some calls from residents who had read David's good report there, and particularly where they noticed that on page 3 it talks about our committee and how Bill 109 affects us. So with that in mind, I thought it was incumbent on us to educate ourselves as much as possible about this. And again, that was the initial reason for asking to have this meeting. John, thank you. You asked for our item B on here, which we'll get to after we discuss 109, about an update on the Island Lake Conservation Area Management Plan. So, and I think that was a good request, and thank you for making that. So, David, welcome. Thank you. So, with that in mind, that's the introduction as to why we want this. I do not expect this to be a long meeting. So, if you've got something in the oven or a Blue Jays ball game against the Yankees to get to, we'll be able to do that. So, Bill 109. Yes, John.
I was just going to say towards the end in other business, I'd just like to take a couple of minutes and report on what I learned through the attendance at the Dufferin County official plan update in Shelburne a few weeks ago. And I think, as a matter of fact, I think it's perhaps even relevant to the discussion of this new legislation because it certainly suggests the scope to which it might be applicable in Mono. So I'll raise that.
Great suggestion. And yes, so if I get a little addled and forget that, John, please remind me when we get to other business. But yes, I think that's a great suggestion. So we have a huge amount of material here on Bill 109. And Susan and David, thank you. I asked and requested some of this material to be included in our packages, and some links to other things that we didn't want to print off hundreds of pages and that. I don't want to go through everything. David's report is very detailed. It's very thorough, and that David suggested the technical overview document, and that, David, thank you. There's a lot of material there. We're not going to go through this page by page by page, but given that Bill 109 affects municipalities in a big way, and also affects our planning committee, I really wanted to highlight how Bill 109, the main highlights, David, and how that will affect the planning committee going forward. So, David, with that, let me turn it over to you. And after David has said his things, Barbara and John, you may have questions, lots of questions and the like. But David, I'm going to turn this over to you, highlighting how Bill 109 will first off affect our planning committee and the major things that affect municipalities, please.
Okay, thanks, Bob. This bill got a lot of reaction. I was going to say feedback, but that's not the appropriate term. Reaction is a better term. Most of it unfavorable, largely because it doesn't rigorously address some of the underlying problems and challenges that it's trying to solve. And it's well-intentioned, and I don't think there's one town planner out there that would love to be able to expedite projects or applications more quickly and more efficiently. But in trying to do that, it uses a punitive approach for reimbursement of fees if certain things don't get out the door within set time frames. And they're in the report. I don't need to go over them. They're graduated. And if you read any report from any planning department, and certainly where there are larger planning departments that have dedicated policy sections, you can see that particular aspect that would affect Mono, as with other municipalities, is kind of short-sighted, and that it's counterintuitive to good community planning in the sense that it's saying, don't do it right, just do it right away. Well, that has repercussions down the road. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we do have a housing crunch. Pardon me?
That won a majority in Ontario on the election platform of get her done. So
get her done. And I can get into nuance and minutia, but what we struggle with here is long-term policy direction at a lower local level, an upper level, and even a provincial level relative to our wonderful free market system that we have, but that provides a challenge with land as a commodity, right? Land creates wealth, no question. It did so. If you look at North America from the 15 or 1600s, relative to South America, the Portuguese went there before they got to North America from the 14s and 1500s. The indenturement of workers there relative to the ability of people to go west, young man, and work your knuckles on your newly founded 100-acre has created a huge wealth increase in North America that South America never saw. That's the reason there's more wealth, and one of the key reasons why there's more wealth in North America. However, that creates challenges against good community planning in the long term. I've got this parcel of land here, and it's farmland, don't you know, Dave? And I'm just using this hypothetical. I'll pick on Barrie. Barrie's a good example. And by golly gee, I can see the roads and curbs from the edge of my property, and I'm seeing the dollar signs in my eyes. My golly gee, if Green Park were to buy my 100 acres and fold it into the city of Barrie, I'm a multimillionaire. And I don't have to do a thing, just sign on the sale and purchase agreement. Developer's going to take it over, do all the rest. That happened. That happened in Barrie. I saw it happen. And it was continuing to happen. And guess what it did? It created a lot of affordable housing. That's how I got a house. That's how I got my house. I was able to buy a brand new spanking 2-car, 2-story, 2,000 square foot home on Masters Drive, which I helped to design because it used to be farmland. And I guess I'm thankful for that. But by the early 2000s, the province was waking up and realized if we continue going down this path, and as climate change particularly was starting to loom, they realized, uh-oh, we can end up in a problem. That's the growth plan. What the growth plan didn't do was think more rigorously about its implications. I call it getting an architect to design a library, and he forgets to take into account the weight of the books. Excess soil. Excess soil. Someone in the province should have realized that was going to be an issue down the road. Multimodal transit planning over the long term. That's been short-sighted. Parkland, linear parkland, also short-sighted. 2% for commercial development, 5% for residential development doesn't cut it anymore, in my view. If we're going to densify, you need to offset with more parkland. And there's an abundance of reasons for that, urban design, health aside. And the list goes on. So we're now trying to play catch up. And by the way, there wasn't enough of a rigorous application of the original principles of the growth plan to ensure that some of those 2-car garage, 2-story, 2,000 square foot homes, some of them, every third one or every fourth one, had an independent loft above the garage with a separate man door. So if I'm the owner, I don't have to keep bumping into my tenant every day. There's his door there, there's mine there. That would have provided more affordable rental housing now. Didn't happen. So guess what? We're going to play catch up. You know what else is going to happen in 20, 30 years? We're going to be trying to do the same thing with climate change. Just wait. Just wait. Anyway, this bill has some good ideas to it, some of which we can embrace in terms of delegation, which we're going to do. We have to do site plan delegation to a staff level. That's been done in some larger municipalities for some time. It works pretty good because if there's an issue at an applicant side or on a municipal side, we can always bump it up to council. If there's a disagreement between the two, okay, let council decide. I don't think that needs to happen all that much here in Mono. We're rural. We see developments probably more than most rural municipalities on our provincial, basically along our provincial highways, which thankfully that's where it should be. But I think largely we'll be able to steward that particular new provision, delegation of site plan. We'll see whether we're able to, I'm still going over bits of this bill myself. I think there was a desire to get minor zoning changes, such as deeming bylaws or temporary use bylaws also delegated either to staff or to a committee, and I think that's a worthy thing. There's aspects of this bill that don't apply, the stuff related to transit hubs. That's all urban focused. I think beyond that, we're going to have to look at our fees bylaw, because we're going to have to be more competent. Well, that's not the right word. We're going to have to be more resolved, I guess, where we deem something as a complete application and the clock starts ticking. Burlington, for example, said, okay, if there's going to be chargeback of fees because we can't get something done in 60, 90, or 120 days, then we're up in they've offset that loss already by increasing their fees. Ironically, if you looked at the Toronto report, which was written by their policy division, the irony is, if I can find my copy, the city
Dave,
has,
you're referring to the one that you included in our package, review of Bill 109 Toronto.
yes,
That's what you're, April 26, 2022?
correct.
Okay.
If you read through that, they have had an amendment in front of the province for over a year. Well, I know folks of the province, and generally speaking, like any of us, we're not sitting around twiddling our thumbs and counting ceiling tiles. They probably are over volumized on work relative to staff to try and punch some of this stuff out and do so in a way that's competent. In other words, it can't just be rubber stamped. It's got to be thoughtfully reviewed. That report, the Toronto report, really weighed in on, as they call, the iterative approach of planning. It's very collaborative, so that we get better communities down the road. We have public meetings, we have agency comment engagement, we have committees of council to review, so that the fulsome approach and analysis of an application, from application to application, has undergone good assessment, so that the outcome is good and proper, hopefully. And where there's doubt or disagreement, it has an appeal mechanism. There are, I think, I think some of the things that aren't in Bill 109 that need to be considered at this point in time is we need a more integrated, we're at a point where the shortage of staffing aside across the board, right across the board. I was talking to our town solicitor a few days ago. He said, Dave, I can't even get starting lawyers out of, good law schools, Western, Kingston, Queens, Toronto, who start at a really good salary into my office. That's how bad it is. But beside that fact is that that's going to have a catch-up aspect to it as well. And regardless of that fact, we're past the time where we need a more integrative digital platform for project management review of applications, so that instead of having to chase down the NVCA with an email chain and then an email chain back, that everyone is on board with a very sophisticated system online, so an applicant and a local municipality and the county and MTO and the conservation of whoever else can be on that platform on a project by project basis and see status, right? So you have, that would help. And I still think in the short term, if the province really wanted to create more housing and get applications through the conservation authorities and the NEC, just to pick on those two agencies, is to give some money to them so they can cherry pick some consultants to have a fast track alternative. I think I mentioned this before. We did this in Barrie. The builder said, who amongst your staff wants to come in on a weekend and get triple time? Hands went up. I went in. And they said, no problem. Triple the cost. Instead of $1,000, it's $3,000. We're going back to the 90s. No problem. Paid. But can you get these out at the end of the day? Yep, sure. We got extra time. Money bought time to punch them out. And I think in the short term, that's something that the province should be doing, is giving more money to some of those agencies until hopefully maybe the the staffing issue there stabilizes. Anyway, I could go on and on.
Dave, let me interrupt you and ask you then. I guess, on our agenda here, 8 is active planning applications, and these are things that are actively ongoing in the town of Mono.
Right.
And then I read on page 3 of your report, planning and committee, that it looks to me as though, trying to speed things up, that this might limit, Mono's planning committee input to things, or in a more general sense, residents' input into active planning applications. And for me and for some residents that phoned me, that was a source of concern, and that. So, is that a legitimate concern, or I mean, Mono is a little unique. We have our planning committee. We're meeting here tonight. Town of Orangeville don't have a planning committee, as we know. The planning committee is
They don't have a
council.
land use planner at all.
Sorry.
Well, the county of Dufferin doesn't even have a land use planner.
Right. Yeah.
About Orange.
So, Mono has chosen to do this. I've been on this committee for 27 years. There was one term of council way back in the day when they sat for 3 years that disbanded the planning committee. And then John Creelman got elected and he resurrected it again. And that's when I started on this. So, I guess I look at that and, not that I'm personally upset about it or whatever, but does our planning committee, do we become irrelevant or obsolete, or, you know what I'm saying? John, sorry, you raised your hand.
Well, I was just going to, I think, help out Dave a little bit here. On page 3, on that his chapter in the staff report that talks about the planning committee, he strongly recommends that input from PennHack continue to be solicited, and that's supported in David Trotman's report to council. So that I really appreciate. I might add to that a question, however, and that is that the next bullet on that page 3 is titled variance process. It makes no reference to the existing committee of adjustment, and then goes on to make a recommendation. It implies, I guess, that the new legislation gives Mono the latitude to free itself of any committee of adjustment. And to that end, recommendation 4 to council, which I take it has been adopted, is that council direct town staff and town solicitor to develop a variance process for minor zoning changes, which will ensure a functional it is functional from an administrative perspective for submission to council for review and consideration prior to January 1st. So I take it from that recommendation that the current committee of adjustment, of which I am on, does not function from an administrative perspective and is therefore to be replaced. So this is what the staff report says. So PennHack is reinforced in the staff report, but my understanding, my reading of this is that the committee of adjustment will be finished.
I haven't heard as much. There's a desire to get some zoning.
Dave, you wrote
Well,
this.
no, there's a desire to get some zoning matters such as deeming bylaws or temporary use bylaws through a variance process. In other words, to reduce the process or shorten the process for administrative type things such as that. But no, if they're still going to need if you have a zoning provision that you want a relief from, it still has to go through an adjustment process. So no, there's nothing in this bylaw I've seen or read that says committee of adjustments are now the way of the dodo bird. No.
Oh, so you just chose not to reference it in relation to the variance process, which is
Well,
curious.
it speaks to the minor zoning changes beyond what is done through committee of adjustment as zoning performance standards. So again, it's to deal with, it's to add in things such as deeming bylaws to be done administratively by staff or committee, or temporary use bylaws, for example, by staff or committee as well. I suppose it could go through a committee of adjustment, or it could be at a staff level. But no, I don't. There was nothing in my read of the copious information that committees of adjustment were now going to be eliminated. That's not true. I don't believe that's true. No.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. I just
It doesn't say committee of adjustment. It talks about a variance process, certain minor zoning matters. But the idea that
it's notable by its omission. So that's why I asked about
yeah, I
it.
mean,
So
it could have been a bit more clear, I suppose. That it doesn't preclude the need for someone to have a review of a reduced setback, because in many cases they are minor, and in some cases they're not minor.
well,
and so those are the key
quite right.
ones for any committee of adjustment, right?
But I'm glad to hear that the recommendation 6 is not implying that the current committee of adjustment is not functional from an administrative perspective. I mean, I don't think it's given anybody any static whatsoever and has expedited.
Functional? No, correct. That's my read as well. I mean,
Now,
we've got to vet that bylaw through our town solicitor. I haven't seen anything in the documentation under 109 that says that.
Super. Now, Mr. Chair, perhaps
Yeah.
I could just interject at this particular point. Dave was getting me anxious because I think you were bringing me the lessons of Barrie and the really horrendous growth pressures that are going on all over the Golden Horseshoe area. And I am the first one to repeat the dogma of, what is it that every level of government agrees on universally? It's that we're going to have 4.5 million new residents in the greater Golden Horseshoe in the next 25 years. I mean, this is the gospel according to Hempson and the province and the feds and everyone else. So that said, which is enough to make anybody nervous. That said, when I went to the Dufferin County official plan update in Shelburne, the purpose of that meeting was to draw to public attention the first approximations of population growth, employment growth, and residential development from now until the year 2051. So that's 28 years. And these are the projections that will be built into the county official plan. And just in case you want to jot these down, Susan will have this recorded. So I'll just pick off a few of these numbers because although, as David points out, from a development point of view, the sky is falling everywhere, in the special instance of Mono, these following statistics are remarkable. So remember, this is for the period 2021 to 2051. The projected growth in population overall, 100 people.
In Mono.
In Mono, in the
Okay.
next 28 years. So that's an interesting number. Employment. Another interesting number, what's projected to grow from now until 2051 is 500 jobs. Personally, I think that's great to have people employed in Mono. I think it's healthier than our present situation from that point of view. Now, a particular note is despite the name of this new legislation, More Homes for Everyone, I take it that means multiple residences for many. the dwelling growth projections for the next 28 years for Mono outside of settlements is 98. Now, considering that Mono has literally thousands, David will be able to give me the exact number, of lots of record that do not have any dwellings on whatsoever, it possibly means that really there aren't any new severances needed till 2051, if one was to live and die by these projections. As to new dwellings that are going to be directed to settlement areas, right, to expansion of settlement areas, the total number is 82 new dwellings, which is essentially the size of a major subdivision. So,
or half the size.
Or half the size.
Yeah.
So my overall conclusion from this is, because I'm an ecologist, I look at things quantitatively. The numbers tell me that I'm living in the place I want to live, and that although we may be concerned about Barrie and other places, David, we're really blessed by perhaps living out our time without having to live up to provincial growth. I would say more than expectations, growth requirements, as much as other parts of Dufferin and other parts of the greater Golden Horseshoe. So I take really good news from that, notwithstanding the challenges of building, what's the expression? More homes for everyone. So.
Yeah. No, very, very well stated, John.
I would encourage everybody to get a copy of this. It should have come out with our tax packages, our property tax packages. It's a really very interesting piece of quantitative premonition of our future.
You know, and that's a good point, John. David, is that document, is that available? Can you send it to the committee members, please?
There's some stuff linked on the Dufferin County site. I'm not a fan of their site. It's sometimes hard to find stuff.
Yeah,
but
that's why I'm asking you and Susan for help on this. If you can find it, send it to us. I agree with you. So yeah, Barbara, yeah, you've been sitting quietly listening, and I know you have experience with municipal stuff, and that John, first off, thank you, and Barbara, what are your thoughts on all of this, please?
Well, I kind of think the Bill 109 is a bit of a boondoggle. I don't see it creating any more homes. I think what's going to happen with it, it's going to create a bureaucracy that's going to remove most of the planning decisions away from the local community, which I think is not fair. And I think that the cost of the rates of which they're going to have to refund development fees, in the end, it's all going to go back to the ratepayers. They're going to wind up paying the brunt of it, whether upfront or in legal costs. I'm glad to hear what John said about the development in Mono, so I know that I'm in a good spot as well. But other than declaring Mono a republic, I don't know what else we can do. The PEN committee, I think, is important. I think the time frame on which development projects are presented to council and to the general public, depending on the size, of course, I think we need what I call a pre-consultation. I think it's like in other words, a preliminary meeting, so that we can keep council on top of what's happening with the local community. I mean, as much as I love the Town of Mono website, it's very confusing. But other than saying that, I don't see this Bill 109 doing anything to put more homes or homes for lower income people into the community. John Creelman was out the other day on the Mono website saying that he basically would like to see lower cost housing. Well, that's fine and dandy. But if we have to put lower cost housing into all of these relationships of fees for development and having to put these proposals together in a short period of time, we know how difficult it is to get comments back from Niagara Commission, of any of the CVR, any of the outreach groups that are required to comment on a planning process. I really do believe that because the legislation is now written into law, I don't see very much we can do about it other than wring our hands and say, God bless you, David Trotman. Keep doing your best.
Barbara, I agree with you. You know, and I'm biased because I have been on the planning committees, all their different names, for it's either 26 or 27 years. You know, I have said this many times before. I'm going to say it now. I have always been proud of what the planning committees have done, Barbara, of what you're calling pre-consultation. And I agree with you completely. More often than not, the planning committees, we did the heavy lifting, and this committee has done that as well. We've done the heavy lifting for a council, and you know, we've spent hours on some you know, issues, and gave you know, the council a very well thought out definitive position on it. And I've said it before, there was, in my experience, there was only one case where one council years ago went against what the planning committee recommended, did not accept our advice. Within 1 month, they realized that they had made a mistake, and went back on that, and went with what the planning committee had recommended. I don't say that out of any kind of ego or pride. It's just, we spend a lot of time working on this stuff that, no disrespect to councils, frankly, they don't have a clue about, and they trust us, trust all of the planning committees over time to do a thorough examination of it with, you know, hearing the applicants, residents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was my concern when I read on, you know, David's report on page 3. And I know, let me add this to it, residents have relied on you know, being able to speak to planning committees to give their points of view. And you know, it's heck, I look, we're going to have an election in the fall, and once that's done, then everybody's going to have to ask, I want to be on the planning committee again. And I'll tell you, I don't know whether I'm going to put my name in again. I don't know, but I think that it has been worthwhile to have the pre-consultation. Barbara, I think you put that really, really well, and that, so that was one of my concerns. That was a concern of residents who know me and phoned me, and that. So, you know, there I'm rambling, but I agree with you completely, and I think that if we lose any opportunity for residents to express their feelings, then that is a problem, and that's an issue, and that's a mistake. How's that for a rant?
Can I add?
Yeah.
Good.
Often with the preliminary meetings or the pre-consulting, the residents do often bring up positive suggestions that contribute to a successful outcome. And it's not just harping on we don't want this or we don't want that. often or not, this type of dialogue opens up new ideas. And as David says, there was an architect in Toronto, and I remember way back when they built the Robarts Library, they never bothered to figure out how many pounds per square inch the weight of these books, and they had to redevelop it. So thank you for bringing that up. I haven't thought about that one for a while, but it's a sort of common sense approach that another set of eyes looking at a proposal usually sheds a new light on things. At any rate, that's it for.
Yeah, that was in a reference to some of the shortcomings of the growth plan. And you know how they got there? Because they didn't have a proper collaborative group of interdisciplinary group of people, whether it's ecologists,
so
natural scientists, applied scientists. There were no architects. I bet there were no landscape architects involved in the design of that plan. And so the multimodalism aspect that I spoke to got lost in the shuffle. Because you know what we do is we put in sidewalks, curbs, asphalt, sidewalk, curb. That's all we do, largely. And the other thing is that they didn't think about where we're going to get all the gravel from to build those future roads, concrete foundations, whether it's underground, subway infrastructure, stormwater, condo towers in Toronto. That didn't get looked at as far as I know.
Of course they thought about where the aggregate's coming from. They know exactly where the aggregate's coming from. They know how to build it.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I mean, the excess soil probably was the biggest boot. That was the biggest oversight. They really missed the mark on that one. Yeah. But anyway, you know,
you raised your hand there.
If I could just bring this back to Mono, my understanding, I may be wrong on this, but in the official plan for Mono, there is some phrasing around, you know, on an annual basis, the target for the number of new severances is X to Y, something like that.
No more than 20.
Something like that, right. So that's built into the official plan. So the County of Dufferin is going to adopt for its official plan these growth projections that I mentioned. And for example, and then the town of Mono is expected to be in more or less conformity with that official plan. And so if that official plan says that between now and the year 2051, Mono will have a total of an additional 180 dwellings in 28 years. That's 6 per year, which is way below what we currently have, are adding. Is this something that lower tier municipality can add into its official plans and just say, add in the same place as the official plan mentions that, you know, severances should be in this range? It might say, oh, based on the Dufferin County plan, official plan, you know, the number of new dwellings in a year should be in this range. Or would that be contrary to the current gospel of Queen's Park and be vetoed? Like, why are they doing these projections if it's not meant to be in an official plan when it's part of the official plan update?
Well, the update will result, it will foster an amendment,
right,
for being embedded into the Dufferin County official plan. But of course, as an amendment, it's subject to the provisions under the Planning Act, including appeal. So right. Ultimately, the
how do we build this into our plan? If we like it, how do we build this into?
We'll have the upper tier plan as amended. When it becomes amended, we'll have target numbers for all the local municipalities, but it's not going to say, that Mono shall have between 1 and 6 severances per year and no more. It won't do that. It will simply say, as you meet these milestone years, you Mono should be achieving those, achieving or trying to achieve those targets. So there,
So
you
it
know,
will intend it as a minimum, and it can't be interpreted.
oh, no, okay. So minimums under the growth plan are only identified for urban municipalities, not rural. There's no, no rural municipality that I'm aware of is being told you shall have at least, you know, you shall increase your rural lot severances by 40% or 20 or 10% every year till 2050, thing like that. No, even in rural municipalities where there are settlements, a village, a hamlet, and that's where the growth in those rurals is supposed to go, by the way, whether it's municipality X, Y, or Z.
Either this is
Then,
a useless piece of paper, or we ingrain it in the official plan. If it's in the official plan, what does it mean?
Maybe nothing.
it's a well, no, you mean in the upper tier plan? It's a target. It's a target. It's a target. It's not that. Okay, so let's pick on Orangeville or Shelburne. It doesn't say you absolutely must grow Orangeville by X number of people by 2051. It's saying to Orangeville, that's your target by 2051. And we would certainly want to know in 2051 if you fell significantly short of it. If you went above it, good for you, because you're an urban center. Well, Orangeville has other challenges on the servicing side of things, but that's how it would work for Dufferin County.
Okay. You know, I think if I could, you know, and this is all good discussion, but I think that, you know, our topic of Bill 109, we're probably done with that. You know, if you know, we made the committee aware of it. We've expressed some things, John, Barbara, myself, to you, David, and you know, whenever the new council, the current council, frankly, is not going to do anything on this. So you know, when the new council comes around, David, you can give them our feelings about this, and they can read this. So does anybody have anything else to say about Bill 109, or are we done with that one? But I think it's been a good discussion, David. Thank you, John. Barbara,
I appreciate the update.
Committee, we shouldn't be wasting committee's time with minor stuff, you know, like a small site plan or something very minor. Committee is in place to deal with more complex things or more significant matters or important matters. And that's important because you sit as a nonpartisan committee. That's important. That's why you can give objective, thoughtful recommendations back to the political organization known as council. And you're right, Bob, there were at least a couple occasions where committee, I think, recommended something, council denied, and it ended up getting appealed and holding up what was a committee recommendation in the first place. So that objectivity is very important. I think, just to Barbara's point though about housing, we're not going to solve this housing shortage in a year or two or three. And what I'm trying to get to say here is the province, they have a decent base of policy under the growth plan, but they need to provide more effective implementation, and they need to think about the procedural side of things better. We're at a point where we need an integrated software platform to project manage the volume of applications, whether minor or complex. Now we're using an email system in many ways as part of a project management system. It's simply not working.
And David, that it's a good point. We've talked about it before. I agree with you, and that if we can get the town of Mono's new council to express that to the province, if they'll listen to us, great idea. But you're right. You know, segueing into things that the planning committee, you know, important things that we've done. But first off, David, thank you. I think your report is a good one, and that I think this has been a good discussion. But segueing into our item B on here, which was John's request, an update of the committee. We had this, and Susan, David, thank you for printing it off and including it in our package. Our June 15th, 2021 recommendations, 4 pages, well thought out. John, thank you again. You did the lion's share of this. Our recommendations to the CVC about the Island Lake master plan. And John, I think your question was, did they listen to anything that we said? Was that the gist of what you wanted to talk about? I also just before John, before you answer, I know Susan, I asked her to include a link. I didn't want to print it out. It's too darn long. A link to the CVC's Island Lake final carved in stone master plan. So the link was there if anybody wanted to go on it. I did attend a meeting, online meeting after our June 15th, 2021 report was on with the CVC people. I said some things. They didn't like what I said. They completely ignored it. And that my long and short of it is that they've almost completely ignored everything that we put into our June 15th, 2021 report. And that, so David, does that summarize it pretty good? You're muted.
I'd say so. I mean, that's just one thing here before you weigh into Island Lake Management Plan. If Planning Committee tonight, relative to the comments they crafted and submitted, want to respond to CVC, as a committee of council, I think you got to make a recommendation of that through council. You can, I don't believe committee can directly ask or instruct CVC to do something directly.
I wasn't even suggesting that because
no,
they
I'm just
ignore that too.
Yeah.
No, I agree. John, you have your hand up. I'm going to turn on my light here. So
I could suggest an approach of a message to pass along to council in this regard. So first, I'd just like to thank you for providing this link to the Island Lake plan. I confess I would not have found it otherwise, no matter how hard I searched. So that's much appreciated. And certainly it is a much more solid piece of work. The proper editing has been done. Some thought has been put into presentation, but there is a certain clear gloss added to it, part of which is of much reduced specificity with regard to the particular developments that it was so positively promoting in its earlier drafts, to the point where it's a little more difficult to tell whether or not they're still there or not. The hot links to some of the attached schedules don't work, so I wasn't able to sleuth them down entirely. But so these are just my So I'll give you one example. So in the draft plan, they were very clear that they were going to relocate the Vicky Barron Trail to the very water's edge, and even buttress the water's edge. And this particular idea is now alluded to artfully. But it's hidden in the report, but it's still evident on one of the maps. And then of course the maps are at a smaller scale than they were in the draft. So it's a little harder to tell just exactly, but it looks to me like, in fact, as you point out, Bob, they haven't changed that at all. They still have it where it is. And another example where it also appears to have toned down the aggressiveness of the development is, for example, the Shoreline Visitor Center, which you may have refrained was like a 4 or 5 story A-frame in the draft report, which could have been, positively, identified from East Luther. But that has now been, by the artists involved, it's been skillfully redrawn as maybe 2.5 stories. But I think what I've learned from those 2 drawings is it could be anything. It's whatever they're going to bring forward and try and get away with. They in their drawings, they've been very astute in down toning the dominance and visibility of the facilities from the water. So that looks to be reduced. So it's trying to present itself as a more sensitive document. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. The one thing that we did ask for was some costing of the plan, and we did get that. So I am glad to see that, and you will possibly have noted that the total in 2022 dollars is $40 million. And if you look at the cost associated with the visitor center, for example, you could see that they could easily go to 4 stories in an A-frame with the money allocated to it. So I won't quibble with some of the things that I took some offense with, such as how important the Mississauga of the credit were in settling this treaty for this landscape, which they had absolutely nothing to do with. But I don't, this is all gloss that'll disappear over time and won't be important. But if I was to make a recommendation or a comment to council, on page 52, they are very overt and clear that once this has been adopted by the Conservation Authority, they will be seeking support of this from the municipalities. And I think that's a signal for us perhaps to pass along a recommendation, which might be, considering the $42 million price tag in 2022 currency, that we recommend that Mono table the plan as received, or receive the plan as it's been submitted. And then also recommend that Mono withhold, and if it needs to go further than just tabling it, I don't think Mono should necessarily endorse it. So I'd say recommend Mono withhold an overall endorsement of the plan, given the major funding implications over and above the town's present ability to consider such expenditures. And the reason I mean it is because 1 council out, 2 councils out, 3 councils out, they'll have read back to them, well, the town of Mono was fully in support and endorsed this master plan. Please sign the following check. And it may be for things that, future councils may not be quite, I don't know, as eager to look at the details or whatever, but I would hate to think that we were in any way
Seen as supporting it?
well, seen as carrying forward or supporting council in endorsing something that has such significant financial implications. To receive the plan and thank them and tell them it's great, I have no problem with that. But when they come forward cap in hand, knowing that in the future, and this has been very clear with the change in roles and responsibilities around the conservation authorities, the province is willing to kick in on flood control, water management, the core valley land responsibilities of conservation authorities. But when it comes to performances in amphitheaters on a Friday or Saturday night, that's on the municipality to bear the cost. And we may already have an amphitheater in Menora Park or at the Mono Center we may have a venue elsewhere that that this may compete with, and that may be increasingly the case in the future. So that would be my recommendation. I could repeat this in a way, Susan, if the chair so asked me to make that into 2 cogent sentences, but I'll leave it to you, Mr. Chair.
John, I'm just going to ask Barbara for her thoughts on this. But before I do, Barbara, it is actually a matter of record, because the CVC did come to Mono Council with this plan, and they asked Mono Council to officially endorse it. I can't tell you which meeting it was, but it is on the record, and it's recorded as our meeting is tonight. Mono Council refused to endorse it. They did just receive it. So
I did not know that. That's fantastic.
yes, Susan, I don't know if you can get Fred Simpson to look into that, but it is a fact. They went to Orangeville Council. Orangeville Council actually gave them an official endorsement of it. Mono Council did not.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So, Susan, maybe you can find it, please, but I don't know exactly. They may have just done what you've suggested, and thanks for showing up. Thank you. End of discussion. But they didn't. So,
well, Mr. Chair, if that was the case, and if that was the resolution of the town council, then it hardly needs any further advice from us in this regard. They got the point, I guess.
Oh, they did, and John, before that meeting, John's a personal friend of mine, and he told me we're not endorsing this thing, and they did not. That meeting was one that I actually watched that. So, Barbara, what are your thoughts about all that you've heard here? Barbara, sorry, we can't hear you.
I agree with John. I think that I agree. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I agree with John.
Barbara, you're going in and out, and your video is.
I think in memo 2 count, there's no problem in putting forth, so reminding them of our initial concern. Hopefully that we could, and they're concerned with any monetary figures to go to this project. I just got a flash on my screen saying that our internet connection is slow. So if I bog out, please forgive.
Yeah.
But at any rate, if John would put that together as a motion or a memorandum to council, I don't know how you have to do it. I would be glad to second it.
Well, let me just reframe it for Susan as a draft, because I know she likes it done in a meeting, and that is something along the lines, Susan, having reviewed the completed Island Lake Conservation Area management plan, or master plan, if that's what they call it, whatever the correct term is.
Yeah.
Our committee would like to express its support for the town's I don't like the word rejection, the town's decision not to endorse the master plan as currently tabled, particularly considering the financial implications, the financial estimates associated with that master plan, and the still apparently aggressive development implications, no, development plans of that master plan, period. Just something along those lines, just to let the council know we've looked at it. We thank them for their motion in that regard, if the chair thinks that's useful.
Well, I do think it's useful. You know, the more support that we can give council, the better. Barbara, what do you think?
We may have lost.
I
you
agree.
Oh, she agrees. There we go.
Okay.
Did you
So-
get something out of that, Susan?
Wait,
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Susan.
Yeah,
I agree.
Very good.
we have a mover and a seconder for that. Susan, I know that you will put that in a very eloquent way. Moved by John, seconded by Barbara, all in favor. It's unanimous, obviously. So,
I think it should just allude as well to the resolution in the plan 133/21, insofar as where it says that staff, meaning CVC staff, be directed to pursue various fundraising opportunities to enable implementation of the plan. Because that's really what you're saying, is that that portion of the resolution, in your view, as a committee, doesn't de facto mean Mono's willing to sign a blank check, right? So that is the resolution on page 2.
Well, I think they get the point. If Mono hasn't endorsed it, the plan, it means that they have to come to Mono each and every
Right.
time
Oh, yeah.
they
Oh, yeah.
plan. So I wouldn't be any more blunt than we need to.
I agree. David, your point is good, but it makes our resolution to council really long. So,
No worries.
yeah.
Pointing it out to you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, thank you. It's a good point. So, okay. So that's that. Active planning applications. David, so I also asked, and Susan, thank you, to give a link to the Town of Mono website with the active planning applications. There are a lot on there. So David, I don't want to go through them all, or even a majority of them. That's on there. I guess my point, and we have this on on our agenda, is, are there any of those? I mean, we've got two major ones, the Aragon one up there north of Royal Chevolds, and the just to the east of me here, the Hands land. David, are there any of these that are moving forward at any speed that the planning committee will be asked to get involved with them anytime soon?
I wouldn't say soon. I have letters in process to both of those proponents or landowners, Aragon and Roxborough. They both still have an intention to develop those lands for residential. Aragon owns its block 2. That is the big vacant block north of Royal Chevolds, in a residential. And of course, with the Beatrice Hand parcel, what I still do not know is the status of transfer of ownership, if in fact it's going to happen. I think clearly Roxborough has some kind of formal arrangement with Beatrice to do some due diligence work, and this has been ongoing for a few months now. And there may have been some compensation for her as well, because it prevents her from selling that property most likely to someone else in the meantime. So Roxborough, I think, has tied it up for a bit to do due diligence, and they've also requested Dufferin County to have it considered as part of the MCR review for residential. So And that letter came through me, to me through John Creelman, who got a copy sitting as a counselor at the Dufferin County. It went from their lawyer to Dufferin County directly. They didn't copy us at all, which is kind of odd, if not, well, to use a pejorative of ignorant. So,
it was rude, it was arrogant, it was ignorant,
yeah, it was rude.
and it wasn't the right way to do things. So good
So
luck.
that's that. Yeah, we've got letters back crafted back that are going to go back to them. You know, so I don't want to weigh in on, you know, what is the likelihood of one over the other becoming residential.
That's not the point of bringing this up.
Yeah.
We will deal with that if and when these things become real.
Okay,
So that wasn't the point of this.
Let me focus. So what I can do is talk a bit more about Aragon, because they have submitted an official plan amendment and zoning amendment to redesignate and rezone that parcel, the block 2, for residential. Now, it does not include block 1. Well, where is block 1? Block 1 abuts the entire frontage of Menorah Park opposite Royal Chev, by and large, to the corner of Kingfisher, to a depth in or north of about, I haven't measured it, but say 300 feet, whatever, you know, whatever an average size depth of a commercial plaza lot would be, okay? Maybe a bit more than that, maybe a bit less. The rest, block 2 to the north, is what they're focusing on as residential. So there are servicing aspects to being able to do that. I have to deem it as a complete application or not. We've requested a employment land conversion study. Their consultant has said, well, I don't think we need to do one. And so that will be part of my reply back to them in a letter saying, regarding the status or completeness status of their applications. We'll see.
Dave, are we likely going to see anything substantive on that anytime soon? I know you're dealing with a lot of things there, and I didn't want to get into those specifics. If it ever comes to the planning committee, then we'll deal with that then. But it, you know, are we going to see it at a September planning committee meeting, or an October one, or a November one?
No, because, and I've got to be careful in terms of the legal aspects of this, that I suspect they're going to watch the time clock for direct appeal to OLT.
Right.
The tribunal.
I'll tell you this much though, they're behind the 8 ball in terms of bringing this forward, because the MCR, the Municipal Comprehensive, this is called the Official Plan Update. The Dufferin County, the DCOP, Dufferin County Official Plan Update, is well underway. And at that same meeting you were at, John, we missed each other. I came after work. I asked Matt Alexander, WSP, I said, you know, let's just focus on Aragon. I really want to steer clear of Roxborough because of the nature of their letter to Dufferin County from their lawyer. I said, if Aragon sees the light of day on their development or gets some measure of approval, or you know, will those residential unit count numbers be factored into your MCR, your land needs assessment? And he said, no, the horse is out of the barn. We've got what we've got in terms of go forward land needs assessment. If they happen to get approval somehow on block 2, then there's simply more housing supply in Mono as a result in that portion of Mono. And of course, but it would, I know Jones wants to speak up here, it would definitely, you know, talk about fulfilling our long-term housing needs to 2051, it'd be like that. So.
Well, but at the same time, all of those people, none of them will have a job in Mono, because our industrial lands, our jobs lands in our official plan are so important now, because we have an official, a provincial requirement to produce 500 new jobs in Mono. Like 500 new jobs in Mono. God damn it, we don't have 500 jobs in Mono now unless we, count us farmers. I mean, really.
Well,
Which
here's
is
the
what
challenge.
that
Here's-
parcel of land is zoned for, employment.
Right. It's employment. So it's
Well,
absolutely.
it's not zoned for employment. It's in the hamlet designated, but it's zoned rural. But the policy says these may be used for commercial light industrial. But that may
Oh,
has historically meant this is what we want. Should be. You almost shall be without saying the word shall. And that carries weight. I don't think Mono, from council to council, even before my time, has really ever deviated from that. It's been, yeah, that's our future employment land area once Coles Crescent French Drive lands are absorbed and utilized for small business. And hey, listen, I'm a taxpayer too. I'm very mindful of a balance in tax assessment between employment and residential.
right.
It's very important.
So David, I guess, again, we're getting more into this than I wanted to. I guess the
Okay.
thing is, David, you and council keep fighting that good fight. And someday we may have it in front of the whatever planning committee exists at that point in time.
Yeah, so not likely from front of committee in the foreseeable weeks or months, Bob, but
We don't know,
we'll
right?
see what happens in the new year.
Yeah, we don't know.
See what happens in the second quarter of the new year.
Yeah.
We'll know. Well, I think I'll know more by the end of this year where these two applications, these two companion applications, the OPA official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, again for Aragon Block 2, are going to go.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that. There's a long list of things on the active planning applications. We can all read them. We can all see them. John or Barbara, or if you looked at it, was there anything there that concerned you or that you want to bring up, so there's no point. I mean, the meeting's gone on longer than I thought it would be.
The one thing I will say about that, Bob, is there's a bit of a laundry list there of applications that go back from day one. And Andrew Dahmer is working pretty hard to try and he's got to rebuild the internet webpage house while keeping up the existing one. And he's doing that. Good for him. And one of the things we want to do is create a bit more visual clarity for planning, of course, like any of our departments. And we need a better visual display of those applications. The other thing we need to do, and I've asked him to do it, he just hasn't got to it yet, and that is carve out, put aside our pre-consultation application. So if people come to Bob and say, whoa, I see this thing going on, it's like, oh, no, Mr. Smith, that's a pre-consultation exercise only right now. Oh, sorry, Bob, yeah, I see that. Yeah. That has to be done.
Well, and that's the phone calls that I get. Somebody saying, what is this about 200 homes on the Hands land on 40-foot lots? To which I have to say that's pre-consultation. So, David, can I ask you this? I know Andrew's working on that. We're a committee here. Once he's done that, send us all an email and say, hey, here's the link to the new improved active planning applications. And that's all we need to know.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll mention in terms of major applications or initiatives, Bob, is, hopefully we will get to a zoning bylaw update this year. I've got a draft RFP so that we can hopefully choose a consultant and get that job done. That's a big project. But the other thing is, once this Dufferin County update is done, we're going to have to conform our official plan accordingly. So for the upcoming budget year, I've got to think about getting some support, outside support for that particular corresponding official plan update as well. As every lower tier in Dufferin has to do. And that came up in the last pod meeting, Planners of Dufferin meeting. So
David, that's your job. We're assuming that you're going to do it. So that's and I know you're working hard, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, if there was anything that this planning committee could do to help you or influence that, well, you let us know, and we're happy to weigh in on it. But
You'll be involved in that. That is that. When I say complex and key important projects, that's one of them for sure.
So let me say this. The thing about that is that that's not a short-term project. That's going to happen months from now.
That's at least a year.
It likely will happen. So Barbara and John, all of these things likely will happen after the municipal election, and how fast the new council sends out the thing saying, if you want to be on the planning committee, send us your name and tell us why you're so wonderful that we should put you back on it. I'm glad you're smiling, Barbara. So, you know, that will be up to each one of us. And that, again, I said it before, and I've said it to others. I said, I don't even know if I'll put my name in again. So, but I just, you know, we're all adults here. We know how it works, and that I think, you know, both of you and Jerry Reed and Diane have done a spectacular job on this committee, and that I'm sounding as if this is our last meeting, and I don't mean it to sound that way.
It is the last meeting before the election, and I share your thanks to everybody involved with this committee, both Susan and David in supporting it, and everyone on the committee for an enjoyable, educational, and thankless experience over the last 4 years. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Barbara?
Ditto.
No, David, Susan, you know what, it's we worked through all of these things. I'm really pleased, you know, tonight's meeting, the way we dealt with it. Some stuff we printed off and sent to people. Some stuff we gave links to make everybody's life easier. And I think that sets a good style of how these meetings can really run really well.
I've just got a couple more points to make, Bob, if I may.
Yes.
Number one is about it's switching gears here. So I'm looking at Chair Riley here for Committee of Adjustment. We're hoping to get the Campbell revised conditions in front of Committee of Adjustment for August the 25th. I know we're at the 18th now. Those revised conditions are in front of Mr. Jim Diamond, Campbell's planning consultant. They've also been copied to Mike Dunmore, and they have been vetted by our town solicitor. Now,
David, I got to ask you though, that's less than a week away.
I know.
Is that actually legal amount of notice to give to the public? I don't think so.
No, we don't know. I don't know. We don't have to. So let's just talk 2 minutes about this. It's already been before committee, so it doesn't need recirculation. It's simply a question of the committee having to go for a decision. What we don't have right now, though, and what I've asked Mr. Diamond to tell me very soon, as in by Monday, have you got a definitive and fulsome position with NVCA? Doesn't look like it's going to happen, John. So we may have to defer this to September. But I guess here's my question.
I think that might be appropriate given the fact that this is late August. And in August, people look to their personal pleasure and the waning length of the day and say to themselves, hey, I'm not showing up for the next little while. And everything
that's fine. I'm
goes
good with
right down.
The only other thing I want to say, okay, that's fine. The only thing I want to say, just going forward, particularly with Mono Hills and some other, and I will make this clear, first of all, any application coming forward that has technical reports, including many technical reports, will be required to do an executive summary up front. Having said that, and I apologize because I need to clarify for this, because I never really made it clear with Mono Hills. There was never an intention of any committee member to sit down and read 35 darn reports. That was simply the link to where they sit, where they're parked for other agencies and staff to look at in providing their comments. So what I will make, the one thing going forward is that those technical reports will have an executive summary. But as before, for committee and or committee of adjustment or planning committee, my report and how I've alluded to those reports and the proponent or applicant's planning justification report will always be hard copy documents you're going to get in your hand. There may be in mine a link to all these other technical reports. It doesn't mean I'm browbeating you to read them all. It means if you care to read them, go for it, knock yourself out. But if you don't, okay, I'm looking at Barbara, I'm not going to read all these technical reports, nor do you have to. You'll come up to me and say, Dave,
because you're
give
not
us a
going to
summary
refer
on those
us,
technical
not going to
reports.
refer us to those technical reports without extracting from them the executive summary and providing that to us.
Oh yeah, and that's the new bit, will be an executive summary.
But you know what? The way we did tonight's meeting, as I said before, I think it was really, really well done. We got hard copies of stuff that we needed,
You need
and
it.
we had links to stuff that we could go and look at. I think it was spectacular. Susan, David, thank you.
Okay. Sounds
Motion
good.
to adjourn.
Sorry. Oh, John, sorry. I just wanted to, no, but other business. Your thing about Dufferin County. I assume that you already covered that off.
I wove that into the discussion of the.
Okay. Then, Barbara, any other business?
None whatsoever. I like the links to the technical stuff, though, and I even go beyond that.
Okay. Well, you're more ambitious than some of us slackers.
Doesn't mean I understand it.
All righty. John moved to adjourn. Barbara, you're going to second that, and all in favor. And David, thank you. Susan, thank you. Well done. Great meeting.
Thank you
Good
very
stuff.
much.
Thanks.
And,
And
you know, Susan
Barbara,
put the
John,
agenda
thank you.
together, the links. So